Okay, welcome. My name is Brad Pillen, and welcome to the Electrify Cambridge information session about home electrification technology. Can join or proceed to the next slide, please. So again, I'm Brad Pillen, Energy Engagement Planner with the City of Cambridge, joined by a few of our program partners, Justin Bates and Paxton Halsell from Abode Energy Management, and Natalie Reeder from All in Energy. Both Abode and All in Energy support our program in different ways, and you'll hear from a few different folks this evening. And just to note that this meeting is being recorded as well, and we do plan to send around um, the slides and a copy of the recording that we'll post to the city's YouTube page, probably about a week after the presentation tonight. So just a note, we are planning to reserve some time to answer questions at the end tonight. We're planning to go to about 6:45 through the presentation, then leave about 15 minutes or so for questions then. However, you are invited and welcome to submit questions at any point tonight through the presentation using the Q&A button. So if you look on the toolbar on the bottom of your screen, you should see something that says Q&A. If you don't see it, if you click on the three dots or where it says more, you might see Q&A there. We might respond to some questions in real time if it's a fairly straightforward answer, or we might save questions for the end as well. But feel free at any point if you do have questions, you're welcome to type them throughout the presentation, and it'll give us a good couple questions also to get started with as we wrap up. And finally, if you do have any remaining questions at the end of tonight, or you just want to learn more about how this program can best benefit your home, we encourage you to sign up for a no-cost consultation by visiting www.cambridgema.gov/electrify. I did hear from a few folks that the URL that was in the social media post, I believe, on the city's social media accounts may not have been working. I'm not quite sure why that is. Thank you for finding your way to the program page regardless. But if you do type in that URL as you see it there, it should work for you. Next slide, please. So this is the second session of our Electrify Cambridge summer series. So this is three online information sessions that we're holding throughout the summer in 3 consecutive weeks. So last week on Tuesday evening was all about electrifying 1 to 4 unit buildings, residential buildings. Tonight is home electrification technology. And finally, next week on Tuesday at 12 p.m., we'll be electrifying large residential buildings, which generally applies to those with 5 or more units. There is some overlap between all of these sessions, but they each dive in with a little bit more focus on that topic area. So if you did join last week, we did speak a little bit about some of the different technologies that might be involved with electrifying your home, but we're going to dive in a little bit deeper tonight on those and a few other technologies. And just before we get started, to make sure we're all on the same page when we use the phrase electrify or electrifying your home, what we mean here is replacing systems and appliances in your home that operate using fossil fuels, such as oil or natural gas, with alternatives that operate using electricity. Next slide, please. And the reasons, there's a few reasons that we encourage people to do this. One is it helps make your home more energy efficient. It also reduces your home's reliance on fossil fuel. We know in Cambridge that 80% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings. So this is where our greatest opportunity to reduce fossil fuel use and thereby greenhouse gas emissions comes from electrifying and getting fossil fuels out of buildings, particularly residential buildings. It also improves your home's indoor air quality and can improve comfort in your home year round, both with heating in the wintertime and with cooling in the summer. And a few distinct things that this program offers. First, no-cost video consultation with home energy experts at either Abode Energy Management or New Ecology if you're in a larger building that will guide you through each step of the process. Also provides easy access to all available financial incentives. It offers a participating contractor list that can help you find qualified installers in your area. Offers a quote comparison tool that allows you to compare quotes specifically for heat pumps that you might receive. So it'll show you not only how these different quotes or these systems might compare to each other, but also to your existing system. So you can see both the upfront cost, but also the ongoing monthly cost that you can expect with different heat pumps that you might be looking at for your home. And finally, a custom long-term plan to help you remove fossil fuels from your home. We know a lot of these changes take place over time. We would love it, but we don't expect you to fully electrify your home starting next week after seeing this presentation. We know that a lot of these systems have long lifespans, and often when they go, you have to make a really quick decision to replace it with something new, and you might be tied into that new replacement for also a long time. So regardless of where you're at in the process, we encourage you to make a long-term plan which will provide you with information for when you are ready to replace things, even if it's on short notice or if it's planned, you'll know what you need to do to replace it with something that's electric or doesn't use fossil fuels. And so this program, Electrify Cambridge, is for Cambridge residents and property owners. So if you live in Cambridge or if you own a residential property in Cambridge, it includes single-family homeowners, if you are a condo unit owner in 2 to 4 unit buildings, or if you are in a multifamily building with 5 or more units, if you're a building owner or a property manager. Next slide. The program is not really caters to renters, so it is homeowners and building owners, but there are a number of city-supported programs that are available for both renters and homeowners. The primary resource we direct people to is the Cambridge Energy Hotline, which you can see the phone number and the email address on the screen. And they can connect you with all sorts of programs that are city-supported, which can help you save energy, make your home more efficient, or lower your bill. Examples include the Cambridge Community Electricity Program, Community Solar, which allows you to take advantage of the financial savings of solar without installing it on your roof, home energy assessments, energy bill checkups to make sure you understand what's on your bill and that you're paying the lowest cost that you're able to. And our newest program is the Solar Systems Program, which offers support for installing rooftop solar on large residential and commercial buildings. Next slide, please. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to our partners at Abode Energy Management, which is Justin Bates and Paxton Halsell. And I'll let you both take it from here on out. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. And thank you to the City of Cambridge in offering this to residents of both 1 to 4 unit residential buildings, large multifamily buildings, commercial buildings, any kind of building stock in Cambridge. I think thanks to this program here, because it does touch on a lot. It does give folks, residents, business owners, a plan to electrify and the steps to take. So what we'll cover today, going back to what Brad said. So Electrify Cambridge supports residents with home energy upgrades that improve energy efficiency, that reduce a home's reliance on fossil fuels. Improving indoor air quality will be a kind of a key component of today's conversation. And then maximizing comfort, just making homes more comfortable for people. To do all that, to accomplish all of those goals, we will be talking about kind of a few different aspects of electrification, specifically heat pumps, appliances broken down to a few major categories, heat pump water heaters, electric transportation, so those vehicles, whether it be a bike or a car that you're using to get from one place to another, talking about how electrical capacity factors into this decision, whether it's just you making this decision or you and your neighbors, you and your condo association, shouting out that webinar from last week that did go through a few different kind of building types and those unique and special pathways to electrification. I would definitely check that out if you haven't already. And then finally, at each category, we'll talk about the rebates and incentives that are available for residents, for homeowners to tap into here. So we'd like to kind of use this slide. This is from our friends at Rewiring America. It uses data from the US EIA, Energy Information Administration, talking about energy consumption. I think this just really effectively highlights how homeowners are impacted by the kind of world we live in, right? A majority of energy consumed happens in our space heating, whether it be a boiler, connected to baseboards, whether it be a furnace connected to ducts. 45% of single family detached buildings, 45% of that energy consumption goes to space heating. Add on another 9% for air conditioning. That's over half of your energy consumption that is devoted to your heating and cooling needs. That's pretty significant. And if we can install electric technologies using rebates and incentives provided by the sponsors of Mass Save, then there's going to be significant opportunity for homeowners, for residents to lower their annual, monthly costs, just the costs associated with staying comfortable in their home. You'll also see that 16% of energy consumed is on water heating. So stuff that makes your water hot in the shower or water hot in your sink. Another 7% on lighting and refrigeration, and then just kind of a mishmash 20-ish percent at the end there. But we see here that we're going to focus on a few kind of key technologies. Again, space heating and cooling, domestic hot water production, big chunks of your consumed energy that you can install highly efficient electric technologies to reduce your, not consumption, but reduce your cost associated with consumption, increase the energy efficiency of your consumption. A lot of different aspects there. So I'm going to pass it over to Paxton here, who's going to kind of start us off with one of the key technologies that the Electrify Cambridge program touches, which is heat pumps.
Thanks, Justin. And I will go on to the next slide here to discuss heat pumps. So just going back to that 45% number that Justin was talking about, heat pumps are really the key technology to drive energy efficiency in your home. So what is a heat pump? A heat pump uses the same technology as an air conditioner or refrigerator. So the technology's been around a long time and is just kind of going back to some simple concepts of pulling in heat from the inside during the summer and pushing it outside. And in the winter, the opposite occurs. So the ability for heat pumps to do this is kind of how they work and why they do so well. And it works from the refrigerant in these systems. So the refrigerant is actually capturing and pulling onto the heat outside, even at really cold temperatures, and then pushing it inside when you do need to be cool or warm. And this just happens in reverse during these two cycles. So this actual operation of heat pump systems accounts for a 200 to 400% more efficient heating system when compared to electric resistance heaters, or up to 200% more efficient for when in comparison to gas furnaces. It's even more efficient when you're actually looking at oil systems and converting from oil or other fossil fuel systems to heat pumps. And again, this technology has been around for a while, but there's been a lot of incredible advancements in cold climate heat pump technology, especially. And we can get into that a little bit more in the next slide here. So again, going back to the idea of what's happening in your heat pump system. So air source heat pumps exchange heat energy with the air. It's possible to pull heat out of cold outside air because of the properties of the refrigerant in the system. So for example, right now, R410A refrigerant, which is actually being phased out to a more environmentally friendly refrigerant starting in 2026 for new systems being installed. But even the current refrigerant being used boils at negative 55 degrees Fahrenheit. So even when the outside air temperature is negative 15, it is actually really warm for the refrigerant, so it can extract heat energy from it. And we're going to go to the next slide here to talk a little bit about the actual sizing and design needed for heat pump technology. So heat pump technology does differ slightly from existing fossil fuel equipment that you might have in your home. And honestly, even how contractors operate, this is a little bit different. It requires a different approach. and a more holistic approach typically to actually determine the sizing and design needed out of your heat pump system. We'll go into a little bit more detail in the following slides about the actual distribution types that heat pumps come in. But first, it's important to kind of understand what is the capacity of your heat pump system. Is this a cold climate heat pump system where it's retaining its output, at from 95 degrees, 47 degrees, or at that 5-degree temperature? That's an important factor, and that's kind of how you determine the sizing of the heat pump system that's needed. That calculation can change depending on factors like how weatherized your home is. So the degree of insulation, air sealing, even ventilation in your home. All these things, when properly addressed, actually will have a direct impact on the sizing of your heat pump system and how well it operates. Again, in coordination with the selection of a cold climate air source heat pump system. There are a lot of other variables that should be in play when you're looking at a heat pump system. And one of those is a manual J heat load calculation. It sounds a bit complex, and it is, but at the crux of it, it's a very simple kind of calculation to better understand what is the heating load requirement of your home, what is the cooling load requirement of your home. And by addressing and assessing those calculations in your home based on kind of your existing insulation, the size of your home, you can then accurately and successfully select and install a heat pump system that will work in your home. So just this chart is basically showing kind of the breakdown of how different systems can operate at these different temperatures. So there are systems out there that may not perform great at cold temperatures, but that's because they're not a cold climate heat pump. So in the next slide we can go to, we're actually going to just look at the different distribution types that are available. So they fit into two main categories. And again, we're talking about air source heat pump technology. There is other technology out there, ground source heat pumps and air to water heat pumps, which I would really encourage taking advantage of the services that we're providing through Electrify Cambridge to schedule a time with a consultant. That way you can actually better discuss some of the nuances of the technology. But here, this is typically the two categories you'd be falling into when you are looking at this technology is ductless or ducted air source heat pumps. And so these are the ductless variations. So you can see kind of the common wall hung mini split variation that you typically see. There are other variations, the floor mount, which kind of resembles a radiator. There also are ceiling cassettes, which are really kind of a streamlined, sleek, kind of duct that is in your ceiling. But it is ductless. And we can go to the next slide. And so these are the ducted variations. So there are a couple key distinctions between a compact ducted and a centrally ducted system. A compact ducted system will use ductwork, but it may only condition a few rooms or potentially a floor, whereas a centrally ducted system is what you'll typically see in a entire home and the ductwork going from floor to floor or different areas of the home. So this is a centrally ducted system that has an air handler, which is what the outdoor heat pump system is kind of connecting to. And then the air handler is pushing the air through the ductwork. And we'll actually take a better look at that in the next slide here. So this slide is great because not only do you get to see that big kind of the gray box, dark gray box, which is the air handler, you can see different types. You see ductless, you see ducted systems. So this is just getting at kind of the different setups that you can put into your home. or your building. A single zone system where it would be just kind of a one-to-one outdoor unit, and in this instance, it's a ductless mini split system. This is usually the most efficient way to heat and cool, but there are other variations that'll allow kind of a more efficient design for your particular space. And the next slide, these are the rebates and incentives that are available for heat pump technology in 2025 via the Mass Save program. As I referred to previously, we just discussed a lot of air source heat pump technology. And it's important that when you start thinking about your project and the kind of system that you do want to install, you want to think of whether or not you're able to completely displace your pre-existing fossil fuel, or maybe you're taking a step-by-step approach. Again, kind of going back to that electrification long-term journey. For a lot of customers, it's one step at a time. And there are rebates to basically accommodate for that. There's the partial home rebates through Mass Save, and then there are whole home rebates if you are making that large decision to kind of just fully switch over and get rid of the fossil fuel. So I encourage you to just take a look at these rebates. They are right on the Mass Save webpage. There are some different, considerations when you are in a larger building. So I do want to call that out, but these are the 2025 residential heat pump rebates. And I'm going to throw it back over to Justin for our next section here.
Thanks, Paxton. So next up, we're going to be talking about appliances, and we're going to be talking about three main categories. So that is induction cooking, heat pump in hybrid clothes dryers, and then outdoor power equipment and lawn appliances there. So we'll start off with induction cooking here, right? So you see three options. The first one is a range, which is kind of a traditional appliance that you'd find in your kitchen. It has both the cooktop and the stove element to it. The middle picture is just a cooktop, meaning you can you don't have that stove element to it, and you can place that kind of right carved into maybe a countertop or an island, wherever you want to put that kind of lays flat against that surface there. The next one up is a really good alternative if you're dealing with a small apartment space, or if you don't necessarily want to invest in an entire induction stove or induction cooktop. It's a portable induction cooking unit there. So induction stoves work by using electromagnetic fields to directly heat cookware, right? So rather than a burner that heats the cookware, and whether that burner is heated by kind of it's electric coil, or if there's a natural gas element to it, induction stoves work by running a thin coil of copper wire beneath that cooktop surface there. That surface creates a magnetic field when electricity is passed through it. And when compatible cookware, so that's cast iron or some stainless steel cookware, when that cookware is placed on top of it, that magnetic field induces an electrical current within it, and that electrical current heats up due to resistance. And that's kind of how you get that heating element from an otherwise unheated surface. Right. And we're going to talk about some of the benefits to induction cooking in a second. But one of those is that you can take your hand and place it flat on top of the surface and not get burned, because there is no direct generation of heat, right? That heat is transferred through that resistance in the electricity kind of between the cookware and the cooktop there. This method can result in more efficient heating than traditional gas or electric stoves, and is also faster. So moving into kind of the benefits or considerations when we're thinking about the three types of induction cooking. So the first one is referencing a point Brad had made earlier on. That's that indoor air quality, right? Cambridge has many homes that are connected to natural gas, and a lot of residences have a natural gas stove or oven, right? When that natural gas turns on, it's obviously being combusted and it can release those harmful pollutants, whether it be nitrogen oxide, whether it's benzene, carbon monoxide. Use of natural gas stoves actually has a connection to higher rates of asthma in children growing up in those areas, right? Or growing up in households or units that use natural gas cooktop. So there is that indoor air quality benefit that you'll get. It's also faster. So because we're not losing any heat to radiation, and it's that direct electromagnetic current that is being kind of passed between the cookware and the cooktop, we can see much faster cooking time. So we use the example of an 8-quart pot of water. That will boil in 9.3 minutes there, as compared to 17 plus minutes for an electric or gas stove. So it's actually less time spent cooking, which personally, waiting for that noodle pot to heat up is the least favorite part of pasta night. So it definitely makes that cooking experience a little bit better, a little bit more enjoyable there. It's also safer, right? As I mentioned, there's little burn risk as there's no flames or any residual heat. It's easier to clean since it's a flat cooktop. There's no coils, there's no grates, there's nothing you have to kind of peel up or lift up. The interesting addition to this is also precise controls, right? So you can set, as in any temperature, 350, 375, you can set a precise control that allows that temperature to be modified instantly. So if you have a recipe that requires, maybe you're making some sort of cream dish, or doing something or other with an egg white or whatever it might be, you can go from a specific high temperature to a medium high temperature to immediate temperature, just like that. There's also different new features offering air frying. There's hookups to appliances. If you ever kind of leave the house wondering if you turned off the stove, this is a good fix for that little habit there. So Mass Save, the sponsors of Mass Save do offer 2 rebates. The first one is a flat $250 for an electric radiant cooktop or stove. So that must be an Energy Star listed electric radiant unit. The second one is a $500 rebate, which is for an induction cooktop or stove. And again, that must be listed on Energy Star, and you must be replacing a natural gas or propane stove there. So the next technology that we're going to touch on are ventless heat pump dryers, right? So this is a little bit of a strange and new technology here, but it works the same way a heat pump works, the way that Paxton kind of described earlier. Air is pulled from the environment and is heated by that heat pump. The warm, dry air circulates through the tumbling clothes. It absorbs moisture. That moisture is then grabbed onto by the heat pump's evaporator coil. And that condensation, that moisture is drained away via hose or collected in a reservoir, kind of however you're hooked up to the sewer. And that air, now dry, now kind of ripped of moisture, is reheated by the heat pump's condenser coil and recirculated throughout the system here. So it's kind of a closed system. It's a self-contained system that extracts water from clothes while kind of minimizing energy loss to the outside environment there. There's no external venting needed. Again, it's a closed system. It has superior energy efficiency. It works by reusing that heated air. So it's going to have significantly significantly more energy efficient than a vented dryer, potentially leading to lower electricity costs there. And it can also be gentler on fabrics. They operate at lower temperatures, which does mean it takes longer to dry. When purchasing a heat pump dryer, you should expect for your laundry to take a little bit longer. But that lower temperature does reduce the risk of shrinkage or damage to delicate items there. So we kind of put a few different types of dryer technologies in a table here, just so you all can compare a heat pump dryer versus a hybrid heat pump dryer versus standard electric. We talk about operating cost and whether it's vented to the outside, whether you can use a 120 volt outlet or 240 volt. One of, I think, the cool benefits of a heat pump dryer is that it plugs right into a standard 120 volt, so you don't need an electrician to come in and install a 240 volt outlet if you can avoid that. So it offers a little bit more flexibility of where it can be installed. Um, and again, I think two knocks against it is that it will take longer and that it will be able to just take on less clothes. So you will have to modify the way that you wash and dry your clothes, but it could be for the benefit of energy efficiency savings and also kind of better operating costs. There are three rebates that we wanted to touch on for heat pump dryers and peripheral technology. The first one is just an Energy Star dryer. It's a highly efficient Energy Star dryer. You get a flat $50 rebate. For a heat pump dryer, you get a flat $200 rebate there. And then they also have heat pump clothes washers in addition to dryers. And you can qualify for $150 if you install an Energy Star listed system there. Next up in this kind of bucket of appliances is outdoor appliances, lawn equipment. So we'll focus on mowers and leaf blowers and weed whackers, but really any technology, any appliance that you've been using outside to trim your hedges, to cut your grass, to blow your leaves, there's an electric option on the market today. And my sister recently purchased a house, and I convinced her to go electric on all of her lawn appliances there. I'm not saying cutting grass was enjoyable, but it's a little bit more fun. It offers a right to start button. So as soon as you hit that button, it turns on and your lawnmower is running. It's also much quieter. I still wore the big soundproofing headphones there, but they are about half as loud as their gas counterparts and not a lot less, no direct air pollution is generated, right? Leaf blowers especially are a highly polluting appliance, which can be offset by this use of a electric leaf blower there. One thing I might note is that some batteries may run out mid mow. If you have a larger lawn, it might be worth investing in two batteries so that you can charge one while the other one's being used. And when that battery that you're using is up, put that on the charger and bring out the other one. But I think my sister has a 3/4 of an acre. We're able to lawn mow and leaf blow on all one battery charge there. So it's definitely possible. And then lower operating costs. It's about 1/10 the cost to run per hour of operation. So you're again seeing some of those cost savings there. There's some rebates, just in interest of time. Folks can definitely check that out, but there's money available from the sponsors of Mass Save if you want to transition from some of these more fossil fuel-based technologies to electric appliances here. Next up, we're going to be talking about heat pump water heaters. So heat pump water heaters are kind of use the same properties that a typical heat pump would use. They transfer heat from the surrounding air to heat the water without burning any fossil fuels directly here. You'll see in this category or this diagram here that you still have a tank of hot water. It's contained within this typically packaged heat pump water heater system. There are split heat pump water heater systems where you have a unit on the inside and a unit on the outside. But a lot of applications that we're seeing nowadays utilizes this packaged heat pump water heater, where again, the actual kind of hot water generation and hot water storage are all contained in one area. And I'm going to just skip ahead so we can see a picture of that. right? In the middle right here, this is an example of a specific type of manufacturer out there. You'll see that it resembles a typical kind of hot water tank. It is self-contained. There is sometimes a little bit taller, a little bit more greater in height. So you want to just make sure that as you're planning for where to put this technology, whether it's a closet, whether it's a supply closet, whether it's a basement or a garage, that there is enough space around it that you'll be able to kind of sufficiently and properly use it. So talking about the benefits of clean heat for these domestic hot water heaters there, heat pump water heaters will be about 3 to 4 times more efficient than electric and gas units. I think this is a good reminder that energy efficiency doesn't always translate into cost savings. It depends on the price of electricity, depends on the price of natural gas if you're using it, depends on how efficient that existing fossil fuel system might be. Highlighting the Electrify Cambridge consultations, that's a good topic that you can talk with your specialist about. How much could this save me? What would I be looking at in operational costs? All questions would be happy to answer there. It also lasts longer, 10 to 15 years versus 8 to 12. It also, it obviously pulls in outdoor air and then expels air, and it results in a cooler and drier space. So if you have problems with humidity in your basement, this could be not only a good hot water heating solution, but a good dehumidification system. I'll hop on to the next page just to show you two different applications. One is a hybrid heat pump water heater. The second is a solar assisted heat pump water heater. Kind of different applications for whatever your motivation or consideration for electrifying this specific appliance is. Our specialists, again, can kind of help you match with the type of water heater that's going to work best for you. Just to focus in on those solar assisted, it works similar to a solar panel where you're putting this kind of black unit on the exterior of your house, and just the solar insulation itself is going to be able to be used to generate heat that is then, or generate energy that has been then being used to heat your water. There's also new advancements in heat pump water heaters where you don't necessarily need as big of a water tank, because you can heat the water to such a high degree past what you actually need to, past the temperature that you want in your faucets and sinks and showers. And as that water is exiting that tank right there, it's mixing with a little bit of cooler water so that we're using less hot water, but it's still going out at that temperature that y'all want it to be at, whether it be 110 on 120. And again, it's using less energy to produce the same temperature water there. That's called a mixing valve is kind of how that is utilized. And there are two main rebates for heat pump water heaters. That's $750 for a packaged system and $1,500 for a split system there. I'm going to pass it to Paxton to talk about transportation.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so electric transportation. So if you go to the next slide here, we are going to focus primarily on installing EV chargers, buying EVs, and something that is probably really useful in Cambridge, e-bikes. And we can go to the next slide. So, EV, the trade-off. So switching to an EV is one of the most impactful ways to lower your carbon footprint. So despite the higher emissions during manufacturing, these are typically offset just 1.5 to 2 years after driving, and continue to decline further as renewable energy usage grows. Charging an EV is significantly cheaper than fueling with gasoline, EVs also tend to have substantially lower maintenance expenses. So just the actual work needed and the maintenance required for these vehicles are lower than your typical combustion engine vehicles. Currently, range anxiety is really starting to dissipate as the US is now adding around 1,000 public chargers each week. So that means there's just more charging locations available. And in addition to that, the actual charging technologies are always improving. So it just means you can charge, quicker and also more frequently. There's many models, as you've seen. I think the EV market really has exploded to kind of offer all different types of sizes, sedans, trucks, SUVs. You can buy them used, new. The used marketplace for EVs is growing. I think maybe 5 years ago, there wasn't as much of a marketplace there, but currently you can get some great deals on used EV vehicles. And there's also a lot of, information on kind of the maintenance and operational history of those vehicles out there now, just like any other, gas powered vehicle. And this is the EV chargers that are available. So the level 1 chargers is just your typical kind of plug-in. It is a slower charge, so that is one consideration to make. The level 2 chargers out there, those are widely available, and there's a lot of options available. This is typically what most customers, and residents are falling into with what they're actually going to install at home. It allows for about 10 to 20 miles of range per hour being charged. So that's typically enough to be able to charge or mostly charge your vehicle, overnight. And then the last one would be the DC fast charger, which are typically found in public places. And those are the ones that really allow you to charge quickly, just like stopping for gas, basically. I mean, it's more around the 20 to 30-minute range, but these are always advancing and usually available again in public places. So these are all kind of different chargers. For e-bikes, the e-bike technology is also rapidly advancing, and it typically allows a standard 120 volt charging that allows you to just basically bring an EV home or a EV bike to be able to charge in your home. They're very transportable. They're low carbon emissions. They're quick, they're fast, they're fun. So definitely take a look at the EV bikes that are out there. And I'm gonna hand it back over to Justin here for our last segment.
Thanks, Paxton. So kind of putting this all together, right? We are adding additional electric load to your home. There does need to be consideration about what your home's electric capacity is, both what your panel is able to hold or maintain, and the service into your building as well. So when you are replacing existing fossil fuel systems, right, it creates new loads, it creates a need for new dedicated circuits. I think this chart does a good job of kind of talking about where we are in building stock and where you might need to be if you want to explore heat pumps and a heat pump water heater and maybe a level 2 charger. So a lot of older homes have an electrical panel with a capacity of 60 amps. Others built in the 1960s and beyond, some before, have somewhere from 100 amps to 125 amps. That middle category here, you can definitely electrify. You can definitely add a heat pump water heater, and be able to manage on 100 to 125 amp electrical panel. You might need to explore load shifting, which means running some electric technologies like a EV charger at night while other technologies are not working. Maybe it's running your dishwasher while you kind of or at night and prioritizing that over your clothes dryer, right? There are different ways that you can approach electrification, whether it be actually adding capacity to your panel or living within your kind of means of your existing panel right there. Most homes or some homes, a good number of homes that were built 1980s and beyond do have 200 amp electrical panel capacity there, which are definitely large enough for anyone to electrify and throw different electric technologies on there. Our kind of biggest and most frequent recommendation to homeowners and property owners as they're considering electrifying is to have a conversation with your electrician, with your contractor to say, hey, over the next 5 or 10 years, not only do I want to install heat pumps, but I also want to install this technology and that technology. That'll give your contractor, your electrician, the ability to help you kind of make a game plan for electrification and establish whether it makes sense to upgrade your electric panel, invest in a smart panel, or again, use your existing panel and think about load shifting and load management of different abilities. And there's some questions in the chat that we can definitely get to in a little bit. But just again, emphasizing that older homes may face limitations. There are costly aspects of electrification. If it is a pole to house upgrade, that can cost somewhere in the range of $3,000 to $8,000 to $9,000. If you have a below ground service to upgrade that, you might have to dig a trench, and that's going to run costs upwards of $20,000. So there's definitely costs associated if you do need to address your panel. But again, just like to emphasize that not all electrification journeys need a panel increase. And that's kind of why the heat loan is there. The heat loan is a 7-year, 0% interest, up to $25,000. You can use $5,000 of that $25,000 to your electric upgrade. And that can include both the meter upgrade, the panel upgrade, anything associated with that upgrade there can fall into that kind of $5,000 carve out for electric upgrades. Otherwise, you can use that $25,000 for heat pumps or heat pump water heaters. Any mass save rebated technology can fall under this $25,000. And just looking to the future, there will be an income qualification, meaning depending on your income, you will be tied to a specific repayment term. So right now, everybody has $25,000 over 7 years. There will be folks falling within the 81 to 135. They'll maintain access to that 7 years. But folks in the 135 to 300% range, they'll have 5-year repayment term. 300 plus, homeowners making 300 plus percent of that SMI will be eligible for a 3-year 0% loan. So there is options out there, both rebates, money that you can tap into to save project cost, and then these kind of financing mechanisms that will help offset or at least future-proof some of your costs there. Otherwise, I think that's all on the electric tech side of the presentation today. I'll pass it back to Brad to finish this off.
Great. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Paxton. And thanks everyone for sticking with us tonight. I know we covered a lot of information, some of it pretty technical, so I just want to reiterate that we will send around a copy of the slides and a link to the recording on the city's YouTube page. So you can expect to receive that in about a week or so. And we are going to take some time now for questions. So I know some people submitted questions using the Q&A function throughout the presentation. So thank you for doing that. And if you'd like to still submit them through the Q&A button, we still encourage you to do that. If you'd like to just come off of mute and ask that, the way the meeting's set up is that we have to invite you to come off of mute. So what you can do if you'd like to orally ask your question is you can, you should see a raise hand button on the toolbar near the bottom of your screen. You can use the raise hand button icon and we will invite you to come off of mute. If you don't see that button, it may be where the 3 dots are and it says more. If you click that, you might see raise hand, but you should see it. So again, two ways to ask your questions using the Q&A button or using the raise hand button. And I know we went about 5 minutes over the presentation than we planned. So I know we're scheduled till 7. We're happy to stay on for a few extra minutes. And I would just encourage you, if you do have any really deep, specific questions to your home, everyone is invited to sign up for a free consultation through the Electrify Cambridge program. You can do so at the program website, cambridgema.gov/electrify, or use the QR code that's on the screen there. You'll get an hour dedicated to just your home and your questions with an expert in this. So for those really specific questions, we would encourage that. But again, we appreciate you all joining in, and we are happy to open it up to a few questions now. So maybe Natalie, do you want to get us started with some that came through the Q&A? And again, continue to submit through there, or you can use the raise hand button, and we'll invite you to come off of mute.
Absolutely. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We have some questions that are already getting answers in the chat, but we might read them out loud just to highlight them so everyone can hear the answer. So the first question we're going to start with is Maxwell's, saying, are there incentives to offset the cost of going all electric and needing to increase your electric service from 200 amp to 400 amp to support level 2 charging? This is something we've covered in the presentation, but Justin, I'll just pass it over to you to give a quick reminder.
Yeah, so that would be $5,000 of that $25,000 heat loan will be able to be financed for any sort of kind of electrical panel upgrades or electric upgrades associated with a Mass Save project there.
Great, and I think this is a great time to remind you, all of you that Electrify Cambridge consultation, part of that is really talking through the costs. So what projects are you interested over the long term? What makes the most sense? And what should you be thinking about in terms of what your budget is and what makes sense for your home? We're going to go ahead and move on to another question from Marla Rhodes saying, we heard that some rebates would expire at the end of 2025. Could you comment on that, especially for heat pump rebates?
Yeah, so as part of the Mass Save, oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. As part of the Mass Save 3-year plan, the sponsors put out kind of year-over-year proposals for the rebate amounts associated with partial and whole home heat pump projects. That the 2026, the 2027 values have not been publicized, have not been finalized. What we know is the 2025 values, which is that $1,250 per ton for a partial home system, $3,000 per ton for a whole home system. And the sponsors are dedicated to publicizing and making sure that there's information out there as soon as possible for that 2026 and 2027 values when possible. I'll also mention that you may also be referring to that federal tax credit, both the 25C and 25D. Unfortunately, those will be phased out in the coming months. Heat pump projects specifically need to be installed and operational by December 31st, 2025. We have some kind of specific language. We just like to emphasize we are not tax professionals. We always advise that you work with somebody in your network to make sure that you understand, that they understand how you can stay compliant with the federal tax code. But in the chat here, I'll drop kind of what I think is a helpful way to, and Natalie, will they receive this if I send this in the chat?
They should, but yeah, we can also make sure to follow up with anyone who has that specific question. Oh, and I'll, yeah. All right, so our next
actually,
question.
can I just add one thing, which just to add to what Justin said, my understanding is that it's not expected that incentives for heat pumps through Mass Save will increase beyond this year. So I think it's expected to either stay consistent or slightly reduce year over year for at least possibly the next 2 years. In this year, it is slightly less than in previous years. So I think that's just the reality of greater heat pump adoption and the Mass Save budget being, ever increasing, but trying to find some middle ground compromise. So some people have heard that incentives are less now than they were in the past, and maybe less again in the future beyond this year, which I think some of that's still being finalized. But just to say that is a likely scenario. So there's certainly reason to act sooner because the incentives, you should not be counting them increasing at least over the next 2 years through the Mass Save program.
Great, thanks for that context, Brad. We'll move on to Molly Frey's question. Do underground electrical upgrades always involve excavating, or can lines be run through existing conduit?
That is a great question. My gut says all underground electrical upgrades that I'm aware of do need to be excavated, need to be dug out and replaced. I do not believe that you can use that kind of the existing conduit or existing wires or pipe into your home. So I do believe that has to be a part of the kind of projected cost of that upgrade there. But I would be happy to look further into that. And Molly, I'd be happy to follow up with you if not sure how you can get. If you sign up for an Electrify Cambridge consultation, I would be happy to answer that question in a little bit more depth.
Great, thank you, Justin. And this is also a reminder, having those Electrify Cambridge consultations, if questions come up, these are meant to be over time. We recognize electrification is over time. So if you've had a consultation in the past, that doesn't mean you're out of your option, you're out of time. You're welcome to have another to continue work on your projects and your plan for your home. We have another question that we answered, but we want to go ahead and highlight it to folks. Maxwell asked, most incentives that you find online are targeted at existing properties. Are there any programs or support for new construction?
Yes, so the sponsors of Mass Save have a residential new construction pathway for 1 to 4 unit homes. You do have to kind of engage with the program before you make some major decisions. So if you are engaging in new construction, sooner rather than later, either reach out to your specific sponsor, which would be Eversource in your territory here, or schedule an Electrify Cambridge consultation. We can kind of guide you through the steps of a new construction rebate and project there. But I did.
And one thing to highlight. Oh, you go, Justin.
I was just going to say the pathway procedure requirements are in that link in that answer. So definitely feel free to click through that and explore the Mass Save webpage there.
And one thing to highlight, some context for the city of Cambridge is all new construction in Cambridge has to be fossil fuel free. I added that to the answer to that question as well. So just so folks are aware, there is an ordinance in Cambridge for new construction regarding those buildings being fossil fuel free.
I see we do have a hand raise. So Councillor Patty Nolan, thanks for joining us this evening, and I will invite you to come off of mute and you can ask your question.
Thanks, Brad. As you know, I'm totally jazzed and excited about all this. And as was said, I had put that answer in that link about the new construction. If people don't know in Cambridge that we are one of the 10 communities with a fossil fuel free. So if you're doing new construction or a major upgrade to a property, it by our local law has to be fossil fuel free. And there are still some ways that we can talk to you about that. The other two things I think I want to point out is we also have a local ordinance that any resident using a leaf blower, it has to be electric. You are no longer allowed to use gas-powered leaf blowers in the city of Cambridge if you're using it for your own property. We're hoping to expand that to other kinds of lawn use. And then the third thing is that if you do have an EV and you don't have, like I do for my EV, I have a charger in my garage. I did have to have the conduit put underground, but you are allowed to legally charge across the sidewalk with an approved permit for only right now level 1 chargers, but we're working on it for level 2. So the city, along with Brad and everyone else in the team, is really working hard to make it easier for people in consultation with Abode Energy and others. And the only other thing which I think was mentioned is if you are thinking of a heat pump, try to get it involved now because of the federal tax credits. Those are hugely important that are going to disappear. So I think my question was just as we move forward, The other thing to do is I think we're building, which Brad, we talked about at the last meeting, is a network of folks across Cambridge who have done this kind of work in their homes, because there's people across the Cambridge who would love to talk to other residents about what they're doing. So I'm looking forward to that conversation continuing.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Great. Well, I know it is 7:02, so some of you may have to jump off. We're still keeping the recording going. So if there are any last questions that folks that we're answering and folks might have, we'll make sure to include those in the recording. We do have one from Dave in the Q&A saying, when installing an induction range, how does the oven work for baking? Is it just a basic electric resistance oven?
Yeah, great question. So nail on the head there. That oven and induction range typically works like that standard electric oven, using an electric resistance heating element there for whether it be baking or broiling. So you can kind of expect that'll work as it does if you have a electric stove currently.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. And then we just had one more question we wanted to highlight from the Q&A about electric panel capacity, asking, in a 3-family triple decker, is 400 amps for the master panel sufficient? Again, one that is great to have an Electrify Cambridge consultation, but Justin, just want to pass that to you.
I think I'll reiterate that answer from Paxton there. In most scenarios, and again, definitely talk with your electrician, your contractor, to make a plan for what electric technologies you and your neighbors want to install. Because as a unit, you do have to consider the service into your building in addition to your specific unit's panels capacity. But 400 amps for a 3-unit building should be sufficient. But again, work with your electrician, work with your contractor, or schedule that Electrify Cambridge consultation. We can kind of help you draw out some of this information here.
All right, and it looks like we have a hand from Mary Shetterly. We'll invite you to go off mute, Mary. And we can hear you now.
Oh, okay, good. I thought I had a question in the chat, but I have had inspections of my house. I did the consultation. The prices were really, and the person who did the consult afterward said that the reason was that only one of the companies had followed the J heat load calculation. I don't know what that is. Could someone explain that, please?
I'd be happy to jump in here, and also I'd also encourage you, if you wanted to follow up also on that with whoever you met at Abode, to kind of go through your actual calculation that you're referring to, which is the manual J heat load calculation, which was what I referred to at the beginning of the presentation, and that's what the contractor should be doing when they actually come out to your home and assess the sizing that's required of the heat pump system that you'd be planning to put in. So it is a calculation that the contractor, through various means and some of the newer technology out there, they can actually come into your home and do a LiDAR scan of your home, and actually basically determine what heating is needed and what cooling is needed from your heat pump system.
And LiDAR is just some measure of volume?
Yeah, so it would actually measure the different rooms and the layout of your home. So depending on, you could have like a south facing window. All these are kind of factored into the official kind of calculation that's made. And it's looking at insulation values in your home. So whether or not, for example, if you have, a under insulated attic, that could be a factor that's contributing to a higher heat load, basically. So we always kind of refer customers to, make an assessment of your current insulation and air sealing, because that often has a direct impact on the heat pump system that you would have to go forward with. Does
And
that answer your question?
Of what I need to do to find out. Thank you.
Great.
all right, great. Thank you everyone for engaging with these questions. Hopefully we've added to your understanding of different electric technology tonight. And as we've said, we will send out a recording of this meeting. And thank you all for coming, and we hope you have a great rest of your evening. Goodbye, everyone.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you very much.